personality. Although he cultivated a flamboyant stage personality, Mercury was shy and retiring when not performing, particularly around people he did not know well, and granted very few interviews. He once said of himself, "When I'm performing, I'm an extrovert, yet inside I'm a completely different man." On this contrast to his larger-than-life stage persona, BBC music broadcaster Bob Harris adds he was lovely, bright, sensitive, and quite vulnerable. While on stage, Mercury basked in the love from his audience. Nirvana frontman Kurt Cobain's suicide note mentions how he admired and envied the way Mercury seemed to love and relish in the love and adoration from the crowd. Mercury never discussed his ethnic or religious background with journalists. The closest he came to doing so was in response to a question about his outlandish persona. He said, "That's something inbred. It's a part of me. I will always walk around like a Persian popinjay," an oblique reference to his Indian Parsi background. Feeling a connection to Britain prior to arriving in England, the young Bulsara was heavily influenced by British fashion and music trends while growing up. According to his longtime assistant Peter Freestone, if Freddie had his way, he would have been born aged 18 in Feltham. Harris states, "One of the things about Freddie was that he was very civilized and quite English. I'd go over to his flat near Shepherd's Bush in the afternoon, and he'd get out the fine china and the sugar lumps, and we'd have a cup of tea." His flamboyant dress sense and the emergence of glam rock in the UK in the early 1970s saw Mercury wear outfits designed by Zandra Rhodes. Illness and death. Mercury exhibited HIV or AIDS symptoms as early as 1982. Authors Matt Richards and Mark Langthorne have stated in their biographical book about Mercury, Somebody to Love, The Life, Death, and Legacy of Freddie Mercury, that Mercury secretly visited a doctor in New York City to get a white lesion on his tongue checked. Which might have been leukoplokia, one of the first signs of an HIV infection, a few weeks before Queen's final American appearance with Mercury on Saturday Night Live on the 25th of September 1982, where he began to exhibit the symptoms of someone recently infected with HIV. In October 1986, 2 months after Mercury's final live performance with Queen at Knebworth House on the Magic Tour, the British tabloid newspapers The News of the World and The Sun reported that he had his blood tested for HIV or AIDS at a Holly Street clinic, but he was quoted as saying he was perfectly fit and healthy. According to his partner, Jim Hutton, Mercury was diagnosed with AIDS in late April 1987. Around that time, he said in an interview that he had tested negative for HIV. He told his Queen bandmates of his illness in May 1989. The British press pursued rumors about Mercury's health during the final years of his life, fueled by his increasingly gaunt appearance, Queen's absence from touring, and reports from his former lovers to tabloid journalists. By 1990, rumors about his health were rife. Mercury and his inner circle of colleagues and friends continually denied the stories. It has been suggested that he could have helped AIDS awareness by speaking earlier about his illness. At the 1990 Brit Awards, held at the Dominion Theatre, London, on the 18th of February, Mercury made his final appearance on stage when he joined the rest of Queen to collect the award for Outstanding Contribution to British Music. Filmed in May 1991, the music video for These Are the Days of Our Lives features a very thin Mercury in his final scenes in front of the camera. The video's director, Rudy Dolezal, said AIDS was never a topic. We never discussed it. He didn't want to talk about it. Most of the people didn't even 100% know. If he had it, apart from the band and a few people in the inner circle, he always said, "I don't want to put any burden on other people by telling them my tragedy." The rest of the band were ready to record when Mercury felt able to come into the studio for an hour or two at a time. May said of Mercury, he just kept saying, "Write me more, write me stuff. I want to just sing this and do it, and when I am gone you can finish it off." He had no fear, really. Justin Shirley Smith, the assistant engineer for those last sessions, said, "This is hard to explain to people, but it wasn't sad, it was very happy. He was one of the funniest people I ever encountered. I was laughing most of the time with him." Freddie was saying of his illness, "I'm not going to think about it. I'm going to do this." After the conclusion of his work with Queen in June 1991, Mercury retired to his home in Kensington, West London. His former partner, Mary Austin, was a particular comfort in his final years, and in the last few weeks made regular visits to look after him. Near the end of his life, Mercury began to lose his sight and declined so that he was unable to leave his bed. Mercury chose to hasten his death by refusing medication and took only painkillers. On the 22nd of November 1991, Mercury called Queen's manager Jim Beach to his Kensington home to prepare a public statement, which was released the following day. Following the enormous conjecture in the press over the last 2 weeks, I wish to confirm that I have been tested HIV positive and have AIDS. I felt it correct to keep this information private to date to protect the privacy of those around me. However, the time has come now for my friends and fans around the world to know the truth, and I hope that everyone will join with me, my doctors, and all those worldwide in the fight against this terrible disease. My privacy has always been very special to me, and I am famous for my lack of interviews. Please understand this policy will continue. Death. On the evening of the 24th of November 1991, about 24 hours after issuing the statement, Mercury died at the age of 45 at his home in Kensington. The cause of death was bronchial pneumonia resulting from AIDS. His close friend Dave Clark of the Dave Clark Five was at the bedside vigil when Mercury died. Austin phoned Mercury's parents and sister to break the news, which reached newspaper and television crews in the early hours of the 25th of November. Mercury's funeral service was conducted on the 27th of November 1991 by a Zoroastrian priest at West London Crematorium, where he is commemorated by a plinth under his birth name. In attendance at Mercury's service were his family and 35 of his close friends, including Elton John and the members of Queen. His coffin was carried into the chapel to the sounds of Take My Hand, Precious Lord, You've Got a Friend by Aretha Franklin. In accordance with Mercury's wishes, Mary Austin took possession of his cremated remains and buried them in an undisclosed location. The whereabouts of his ashes are believed to be known only to Austin, who has said that she will never reveal them. However, they are traditionally held by Queen fans to be at Kensal Green Cemetery, where the plinth marks the supposed burial location. Mercury spent and donated to charity much of his wealth during his lifetime, with his estate valued around £8 million at the time of his death. He bequeathed his home, garden lodge, and the adjoining mews, as well as 50% of all privately owned shares, to Mary Austin. His sister, Kashmira Cook, received 25%, as did his parents, Bomi and Yerbal Sara, which Cook acquired upon their deaths. He willed £500,000 to Joe Fonelli, £500,000 to Jim Hutton, £500,000 to Peter Freestone, and £100,000 to Terry Giddings. Mercury, who never drove a car because he had no license, was often chauffeured around London in his Rolls-Royce Silver Shadow from 1979 until his death. The car was passed to his sister Kashmira, who made it available for display at public events, including the West End premiere of the musical We Will Rock You in 2002, before it was auctioned off at the NEC in Birmingham in 2013 for £74,600. Following his death, the outer walls of Garden Lodge in Logan Place became a shrine to Mercury, where mourners paid tributes by covering the walls in graffiti messages. 3 years later, Time Out magazine reported that the wall outside the house has become London's biggest rock and roll shrine. Fans continued to visit to pay their respects with letters appearing on the walls until 2017, when Austin had the wall cleared. Hutton was involved in a 2000 biography of Mercury, Freddie Mercury, The Untold Story, and also gave an interview for The Times in September 2006 for what would have been Mercury's 60th birthday. For more interesting personalities, please do watch our other Who's Who series. Please like, share, and subscribe. Welcome to the spectacular world of 1000 vlogs.